Well, I've been on a pretty big Neo-Prog trip, so why end it here? Let's keep hammering away! We Are Legend by Magenta. So Magenta is a Neo-Prog band from the UK. They really got their start at the turn of this century, and they really made a name for themselves for the second album of Seven. Yeah, their second album was named Seven. Since then, they've kind of just been coasting a little bit here and there. I haven't really listened too much of their music, but we come to their latest release of We Are Legend. This guy, right from the get-go, I knew I was dealing with something special, mainly based on how the album is structured. It's opened up with a 26-minute long song, which is then followed up by two 10-ish minute songs. Very akin to a lot of the progressive rock bands from the 70s that used to do this as well. Thinking like Pawn Hearts from Vandergraaf, thinking of Close to the Edge or Relayered from Yes. These types of really either bombastic openers with two really great secondary songs, but I wouldn't even call them very secondary songs because they're just as good as the big epic on here. And the one thing that I love is all the musicianships playing together on here. Christina Booth, the vocalist, just shines. Her vocals emote such vast different emotions coming on here. I'm getting pushed and pulled in different directions. I feel the great joy of the sounds. I'm hearing great sorrow as well. And I really gotta call out Rob Reed for his synthesizer notes. It's just the atmosphere this guy is able to create on all the tracks. Specifically on the last track of Legend. It opens up with, it almost sounds like a disc reader from the 90s. That same kind of and the band does a great job of building up to an amazing plateau and then staying in that plateau for just the right amount of time. The big epic is a great example of this. Trojan, just building up to an amazing level of plateau and then diving down into like the environment that we have there. And I love how they use the main theme of this song as well. Like they introduce it early on in the song and it really kind of gives you a good idea. And near the end of the song, it feels like a very well climax before they reprise it. And it just feels very humble and very soothing as well. Like we got this great lament into the abyss and it kind of winds itself down, and it would have been fine to end, and there's a part of me that almost wishes that it does, just so that it could fill like that 20 to 24 minute runtime instead of stretching it out into 26. But I'm not complaining because when they do reprise it, they have a lot more to say. It's a lot more grounded and it's a lot more homecoming at that point.
At the break of day, as the silence roars and the dust it falls, open up the doors.
Now the second song of Colors, I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about because it's a 3/3 time. It's essentially a waltz. And I love how this waltz really goes places. Like it's the darkest track off of the album, and yet the ending is probably the most optimistic. And I think it's because it spent so much time developing and building this darker atmosphere. When we get to that 3/3 note sequence and it's kind of changing, it just kind of grinds into you and really satisfies. And again, Christina's vocals on this just penetrate the soul. And here's where she's really carrying that emotion, and every note she's singing is really dripping with that emotion. And again, I can't praise that ending of this track enough. It still keeps with the 3/3 time. A lot of other bands would have changed the time signatures or changed something on there, but they decided to keep with it for the entirety of the song. And for a 10-minute track, that can be kind of a daunting task, but they are able to really helm it very well. Now, I've already talked a little bit about Legends, but there's one particular point that I want to draw the attention to, and that is my favorite moment on the entire album, and I'm so glad that they decided to save it for the last piece. It would have been so easy for them to include it in their really longer track of Trojan by just blowing out the doors right out of the get-go and then leaving these two other songs just to kind of flounder. but they played it smart by keeping the best moment for the very last track and near the ending of the last track as well. This is the point where they really start to build the song up and really get to another plateau. And then once they reach that plateau, they decide to up the octave. And I know it's a little bit of a trick, it's a little bit of a easy out, but it definitely works with what we're playing in, because when we get to that higher note, it just creates such a rewarding listen. So overall, even with the short runtime of just under 50 minutes, like this guy is 48 minutes, I love this album, and I love the fact that they didn't go too further with it. Like, they knew exactly the amount of time that was needed for this album, and they gave it to us. And what I'm also finding is I've been listening to this album for just over a week, about a week and a half, 2 weeks. And even though there's been a lot of great music that's been dropped over that time period, I keep coming back to it. And each time I listen to it, I keep wondering if this is going to be the diminishing returns on investment of my time. But it never does. Like, every time I listen to it, I enjoy it more. So really, I can't praise this album enough. It's been one of my favorite albums of this year so far, which is really saying a lot because there's been quite a number of really great albums out. I gotta say, if you can find it on physical format, you gotta pick it up, because this is a masterclass in music. If I had to knock it, it would be the unoriginality I felt within the guitar work. And that's not to knock Chris Fry's guitar work, because he does some amazing guitar work, but I feel like he's hugging too closely to his influences. Like, there's very prominent David Gilmour influences, there's very prominent Reveries from Marillion, and he almost wears his influences a little too much on the sleeve, but that's the only real knock I can find for this album. Otherwise, it's a fantastic listen. I highly recommend it. Go out, it gets the Notes seal of approval, so yeah, definitely check it out. So that's about it. What did you guys think of We Are Legend by Magenta? Did you love it? Did you hate it? For those Magenta fans out there, how does it stack up to their past works? I've only really listened to 7 and this guy, so again, let me know of how it stacks up to their past works. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are definitely the best. And until next time, Notes out.